Go. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is Aaliyah. We're going to give you guys just a few seconds to get logged in. So thank you again for joining today's session. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Give us just a few seconds to give our attendees and participants some time. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Feel free to add your name to the chat, introduce yourself and your business, and take advantage of this networking opportunity, this virtual networking opportunity. So we're going to get right on into it, this hour session. So everyone will be able to take advantage of your 60-minute virtual session that you have with us today. So thank you for joining Bridging the Gap Financial Conversations Between Corporations and Diverse Vendors. I'm Aaliyah Bunch with EMSDC, Director of MBE Services. We're super excited about our third stop on the road to Roar. So I hope you guys were able to take advantage of our free virtual session that we had to prepare you for next week's conference. Super excited. If you need any information about any Monday's session or Tuesday's Fit for Funders, please make sure that you drop us an email in the chat and we'll make sure that we get you some of that recaps. So today, we have a special guest speaker. We're super excited to introduce you guys to Ms. Ange Matthews. So, bridging the conversations between corporations and diverse vendors, fostering mutual beneficial financial relationships. Very important. Wanted to make sure that you guys take advantage of all of the resources that we'll share in this week on Road to Roar, but most importantly, the development content that we actually prepared with our subject matter experts. So just to give you a little bit of background, we have Ms. Ange Matthews. She's a personal finance expert, investor, and financial educator. She's the founder of Happy Investor Method, where her goal is to make money accessible and fun for all. Imagine that. So through her step-by-step wealth blueprint and more than a decade of experience, Matthews has helped thousands of individuals and organizations learn how to use stock market to shift their wealth and change their lives. Her workshops, seminars, courses, and one-on-one coaching are helping people, especially women and people of color, to put their money to work and change the world. And in addition to her significant contributions to investment education, Ange Matthews is also deeply committed to serving her community through various philanthropic initiatives. She is a board member of the Afro Unicorn Foundation and has held a position of chairman of the board for the Boys Town Youth Services, where she supported the organization's mission to empower and uplift young people. So we're definitely excited to invite you to today's World to Roar. Ange, please feel free to go over your background and a little bit about what we'll be discussing today. Just to let you guys know, we will be going through the presentation and we will have some time at the end for Q&A. So feel free to utilize the chat and the Q&A feature so that we will have those questions and we'll be able to dive into them. So there you are, Ange. Thank you again for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. This is such an important topic, and I love that you're doing it before the actual event. And so I love the concept of the Road to Roar, because who here has gone to an event and you come away with so many business cards and so many contacts, but you really don't know what to do with all of that when you get home? Anybody? Or am I the only one that gets kind of paralyzed by it? Well, for some of us that happens, and I think the organization really wanted you to come to the conference being prepared to engage in actual real conversations that will yield results. Now, this is a topic that I'm sure some of you have been a part of for some time, especially if you are an existing business owner who has been dealing with corporate contracts or being a vendor for corporations for quite some time, or maybe you're new to this all and you're hoping to understand how do you navigate this complex landscape. My goal for you today is to just get a little bit more clarity so that when you are in front of these stakeholders, in front of these decision makers, that you can stand out, that you can shine, and you can really propel your business. So let's dive in. Who am I? So I'm Ange Matthews, founder of the Happy Investor Method, and I'm an investor and a lover of life. Like I think a lot of folks are a lover of life, but I study companies. I'm one of those folks where not only do I own a company, not only do I invest in companies, but I work really closely with companies to create valuable partnerships. And as a result, I'm a B2C business and a B2B, and I'm a small business owner. And I check almost all the boxes, and I highly encourage everyone to check as many boxes as they can. So I am a minority business owner. I am a woman business owner. I am I guess, millennial, but they call me a geriatric millennial, which is a whole other situation. But I highly encourage everyone to check everything that they have access to. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But all this to say is that I travel the country and I do webinars and virtual sessions like this. I do in-person talks. And really the goal of that is to let people know one key thing. And the good word that I have to share with you on today is money loves you and wants to be around you, period. Always and forever. And there are many ways to have money come into your ecosystem. And really, money is a tool. It can be used for so many things. But the real thing is, and how it applies to you as business owners, is that excelling in corporate procurement can be a game changer for you. Now, the operative word here is excelling. How many of us have had corporate details or corporate deals, corporate conversations that started but fizzled out? All of this is a part of the process. But if you can understand how to make it a win for you, well, heck, you are going to be in for one big, positive, cash flowing, successful business. So, what are we going to do today? One thing I want to do is I want to explore with you how are we going to facilitate open and productive financial conversations between corporations and diverse vendors like yourself. I want to also share actionable steps to build stronger financial relationships. Now, I know that a lot of us learn in different ways. If you're the type of person where you learn by just listening and not taking notes, then I want you to just focus and just don't take notes. If you're the person that gets easily distracted and you've got like 10,000 tabs open and you're listening to me in the background, you're doing this, this, and this, what I'm going to say to you is that I really want you to look out for the replay. I really want you to get the downloadable resource that I'm going to be having available for you, because this is too important for you to miss the details. And of course, if you're checking out the replay, I'm so happy that you made it to the party, regardless of what time you made it to the party. We're going to talk about how to, again, understand cash flow cycles, effective communication strategies. We're going to talk about aligning financial goals, because your financial goal might not be the same of the corporate partner that you're working with. And we're going to also wrap up with real world examples. And of course, we're going to save time for Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to throw it into the chat. I am going to be answering questions towards the end. But if it is a specific question about the material that I'm covering, I have a really great way of weaving in the answers while I am presenting it to you. So I have been communicating and training for over 9 years. So I'm pretty good at what I do in terms of making sure that we answer questions on multiple levels. And I am originally from New York. So if I happen to talk fast, just let me know. I could slow down. I live in Georgia, so I could do both. All right. And so what I want to do is I kind of want to throw it have you put it into the chat. What are some of your businesses for you all that are here with us? I know that we got some people here, and I want to know more about what's your business. Give your business a shout out. You never know who is going to be in the room. And often in case you never know who's going to be in the room advocating for you when you're not in the room. So I do want to know, we've got a cleaning service. We've got a coaching, training, and consulting company, which is amazing. I want to know what else are some of the other businesses that are here so that I can make this information as applicable to you as possible. And I will love to say engagement is my love language. So the more y'all chat, you can never put too much in the chat. I'll put it that way. The more you engage, the more fun this is going to be. So what's the best part of being a corporate vendor? What's the best part of being a corporate vendor for some of us? I know the best part for being a corporate vendor for myself, and then also for some of my clients, the best part of being a vendor is the huge lump sum of cash flow. Sometimes if you are looking for one client who could be just a regular average Joe person, well, they might pay you a small fraction of what a big corporate partner might pay you. So an example would be if you have a transportation company, having one person to get every now and then to take to the airport might not be such a big deal unless they are, like a super duper big deal client, like a celebrity client. But if you have a corporate client, like, I don't know, a hospital, or if you have a corporate client that could potentially be a pharmaceutical company or a banking company, and you are shuttling their executives, and you have that one contract with them where you are the executive livery service, well, that's a really big deal. So I think one of the best parts about being a corporate vendor is having those big contracts with those big dollar signs. Another part about being a really big corporate vendor, I know for a lot of us, is having that bigger impact. And so with corporate vendors, typically speaking, you can be working one-on-one with someone, but once you have a corporate vendor, you're going to see the impact that you have, the reach that you have is no longer 10 to 20 to 30 people, but you're impacting hundreds, if not thousands of people. And so that's one of the really great things about having a corporate vendor partnership. And also, you do have more predictable revenue sometimes when you have corporate partnerships because folks will have contracts that can span anywhere from one time to many years in the future. So that's a really great part about it. What's the not so good part, though, right? Every relationship has two sides, every coin, two sides. So, what's the not so good part about having a corporate contracts or being in a vendor relationship with a corporation? What's the not so good part? Anyone? So, the not so good part is that, guess what? Sometimes you get payment delays. Sometimes when doing out payment terms, right? Payment delays. It's the number one thing that I hear when folks gripe about corporate contracts. One is the payment terms, and others say the acquisition time. So, how long is the courtship to actually coach and court a corporate relationship to the contract actually landing and then getting paid and started. There are corporate relationships that I have been courting for 3 years, y'all. 3 years, intentionally courting. And we are now at the table of speaking about how do we work together. And there are other corporate relationships where they could have met me 2 weeks ago. And I mean, the invoices come in like going out in a week or so. And so the timing is really flexible and it fluctuates. And also with that comes the payment terms. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to really get you on the right foot here with the payment terms for your corporate contracts. So what if you could have a system? So a lot of us, we don't enjoy systems. How many folks here love systems and how many folks don't? Some of us think that when you have a system, and what I mean as a system is a way to do something, a blueprint, a way where it's this is the way and this is the way. Some of us, when they hear that, we feel as if we're being cornered into a wall. You can't put baby in a corner. You can't control me. That's why I'm an entrepreneur. That's why I work for a business that gives me flexibility, or that's why I have the position that I have, right? You don't like systems. You might not like operating procedures, all of those things. But really and truly, when it comes to doing this, this is what's really going to help you in the end because a corporation has their rules and regulations and they understand that it's okay for you to have yours. Now, of course, there are exceptions to the rules and there is some wiggle room, but if you're going to be that person who's just going to fly by your bootstraps the whole time, it's not going to work out for you and you are going to come up against so many roadblocks in your future. So what we're going to try to do here is to try to have you have an actual system. Now, why is this important? Well, this is important because 54% of small businesses report cash flow issues as their biggest challenge. Now, 54% of businesses, that's about half. Now, half of businesses might be B2C, meaning that they are reaching out to consumers and everyday people. Now, the other half might be B2B, right? Where they're reaching out and only working with corporations. Now, imagine if this 54%, right, happens to just be the ones that are reaching out to corporations. That's the thing about stats. You never know who it applies to specifically. But of diverse businesses, right, businesses that are diverse, a lot of them actually experience longer payment delays with some waiting up to 90 days for payment. And so this might not be on the B2C side. I actually think this is the B2B side. This is the side where they are working with corporations and they are having troubles getting payment for things that they have already done. Now, this is a huge deal. And why is this a deal? This is a big deal because how many of us work really hard to get a contract and then we have to prepare our business to fulfill the contract? I hear about this a lot. Someone might get a contract. An example would be to fulfill holiday gifts for corporations to give to their employees or their clients or their consumers and constituents. And they will put in a contract, and it might be a $500,000 contract just for your company to create gift baskets. And meanwhile, they're saying that they will pay you in 90 days, meaning if you are delivering this in December, you're not even getting paid for this actual year. You are getting paid for this maybe in March of the following year. Yet you have to pay ahead of time to get the supplies to create these gift baskets. And this is going to put your company in a financial strain if you're not prepared for it. Is this example resonating? So this is a very relevant topic for so many people, regardless of where you are in your business journey or whether you're a product company or a services company, right? All of us still have payroll. A lot of this comes down to understanding cash flow cycles. So a cash flow cycle happens to be something where from the point of where you perform a service or give a product to the point where the money lands in your bank account, this is called a cash flow cycle. Now you have your own cash flow cycles, but guess what? Businesses that you are working with and partnering with also have their own cash flow cycles. Now, the impact of this on vendors is wide and it varies. Well, payment delays or unclear terms create a stain on small and diverse businesses and vendors specifically, limiting your ability to grow and reinvest. What if it means that you know that you have a $5 million contract coming through the pipeline, but yet you need to hire people to execute on that work? Well, what that means is that you're going to have a lapse between where you are putting money out and you have not received money in yet. Nearly 60% of small businesses struggle with these late payments, resulting in lost revenue. So even a contract, right? They can feel like, wow, we're doing a really great thing. We have a diverse vendor. We checked off our box. We are putting towards the initiative that we set in the world. But oftentimes corporations, sometimes they don't pay on time and they don't realize that they could actually be hurting that diverse vendor because other vendors might be better suited to handle that. And so I am an advocate for this in letting people know when they are hiring diverse vendors that they might have to make certain concessions because diverse vendors typically also don't have the structure and the business built that some of our other business and entrepreneurial counterparts might have that might have been doing it for longer periods of time or might not have had to deal with certain things that diverse vendors have had to deal with, like access to funding, which as we all know is like 3% for diverse vendors, and even more nominal if you happen to be a Black vendor. And so these are some things that you have to speak to about the forefront. And if you don't, well, it can have a horrible catastrophic thing happen. You can have layoffs, you can have a broken supply chain, you can even have legal altercations. So most vendors fail to see the other side, this side. A lot of times it's so easy for us to say, oh my gosh, woe is me. And that, uh, like, why are these corporates not understanding my plight? Why don't they want to work with me? Why don't they want to let me know if they're going to hire me? Why don't they want to pay on time? Why don't they want to get a bigger deal? But oftentimes, us as vendors don't see the other side of the pie because a corporation could also be much bigger than us. A corporation could be a publicly uh, traded company where they have many rules and regulations. They can have a different governance board that we are used to. We could be in a company that has under 1,000 employees, and the corporations that we're looking to partner with can have upwards of 50 to 100,000 employees, right? We can come from an understanding of what it's like to work with 20 employees. All this to say, there's a whole other side that you're working with, and you need to understand where your corporate counterparts are coming from and where their decision-making processes are. So here's an example, and this is from Gartner. And it's okay if you might not be able to see the small writing, but all this to say, when a corporation wants to start reaching out to vendors to work with them, this is a chain of command that they typically have to go through. So there has to be a problem identification. They have to understand, hey, we've got a problem. So an example would be for us, we do financial wellness. And as a financial wellness company, I can go to a corporation and say, hey, I've got the service for you. I can educate your employees on how to better manage their money and how to relieve financial struggle and hardship without you having to necessarily pay them more. I can say that to them. But the reality is, if a corporation doesn't understand that their employees are one crisis away from leaving their job to go to another better paying job, well, then they're not really going to hire me. However, if a corporation understands that they have high turnover because their employees are financially unsatisfied and they don't necessarily want to pay them more, but they can understand by teaching people how to manage what they give them better is going to work better for them, well, then they understand they have a problem and they can find me as a solution, which comes to the solution exploration. If people don't understand they have a problem, they're not going to come to you for a solution. Once they understand that they need to find the solution, which is you, well, then they have to start thinking about, well, what does it mean to get the solution? This is when they're going to start doing RFPs, which is a request for a proposal. They're going to start going into suppliers to see who they have in their Rolodex. They're going to also start to maybe put out some conversations out there to their network to see who they know. And then they're going to start getting and accumulating all of this towards the supplier selection process. Once they get to the supplier selection process, that's when you get to say, hey, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? This is where the negotiation comes in. This is where you get to submit your contract deal details and work out the terms. But all of this has so many micro decision steps before you get here. And a lot of us as vendors think that we're showing up here, where we're just showing up to them and saying like, hey, so what do you want? Great. You're going to work with me, right? And then you're forgetting that there's all of this happening in the background. Does this make sense? I want to check in and get a pulse. Are there any questions about this? Has anyone experienced where they might have gotten tied up in any one of these buckets here? I'd love to know. And I'll wait. I don't mind awkward pauses.
So this is really great. I didn't really know what to expect out of this presentation, and it looks like Ange just really got into it. She's giving you guys firsthand on the perspective from a corporate on us understanding their buying cycle, their procurement process a little bit better across board. I know all of our partners may have different procurement cycles, but this is giving you guys a little in-depth information of what they have to take back to their teams, how to better prepare them to solicit your specific commodity to their procurement teams. So I really appreciate this, Ange, and I'm trying to see if we have any questions or anybody wants to, we have a group at a size where you guys can even pop on camera. If you want to share one of your experiences and kind of pick Ange's brain on how she would have handled this situation. So let me see if we got any takers. I know we have Team Clean in the room, and I really appreciate you guys for joining us. We know they have a reach and a large team, so we definitely appreciate you guys. And let me see who else we have here.
And I also have more to discover too. Like this conversation is going to be going on. Like I still have more to present, but I do like taking a break so that if someone has a question about the material, or if they're like, oh, so that's why that happened. Well, just kind of like you said, it's an opportunity to actually ask an expert or get another eyes on why that might have happened. And also happens a lot with change of management. And so as you can see, this is a long process for a corporation, and someone might switch teams. They might have a corporate restructuring, and you might have been right here in
Mhm.
between requirements building and supplier selection, and you might have dispatched that contract and it might not have gotten signed because they switched teams and now you're back over here. And so these are all things to highlight to you of why we might have cash flow issues or why we might not understand what's happening or think it's particularly us when it's actually on the other side. So my point is for you to just understand that there is another side of this conversation. So what can we do as vendors to make sure that this actually works well? And so I love it. Someone said that retainers work in my field of work, and it works really well because regardless of what happens, you're continuously getting paid, right? And so retainers do work really, really well, especially if you can get them in our economic climate. Because I have seen a decline on budgets and stuff like that, but if you can get it, like you hold on to that. It's like a pension. You hold on for dear life. And for a lot of us too, I don't want you to think that retainers are something that don't happen. You can actually figure out a way to structure that within your relationships with corporations. And so I know that we've got a couple of retainers, but they didn't start off that way. They might have started off with a one time, and I will tell them like, actually, it's probably more financially lucrative for you or better financially for you all if you actually had a retainer to keep us on staff or keep us on hand so that you won't have to keep on paying a la carte rate. So for some of us who want some wording around how you can approach someone with a retainer conversation, I would suggest you kind of phrasing it in that way. And so here's some actionable steps for you all to take. Request detailed explanations of payment schedules during contract negotiation. And so before I send a contract out, I always ask, so what are your payment terms? Do you have a net? Is this flexible? And I make sure to get that prior to delivering on anything. A lot of people, they will sign the contract and they were like, yes, I got the deal. Go out to fancy dinner, celebrate with the team, and then do the work, give the product, deliver on the service, and then ask about that, only to be disappointed when the contract says, or the actual person says, hey, we've got like a net, 90, meaning you're not getting paid for 3 months. Right. And that's after the work you've done. Meanwhile, you still have to pay the people who did the work. And so this is really important to put in when you're negotiating your initial conversations. What you also want to do is negotiate earlier or partial payments for milestones or deliverables. And so a lot of times I'll step into a contract and we do a lot of bidding as well, RFPs, and the RFP might say that we'll get work upon completion. We'll get paid upon completion for work, but the contract is like 9 months, and so getting paid upon completion is not okay with me typically, simply because I'm going to be putting out for 9 months. And then what if you have a late fee schedule? I could be an entire year before I see the fruits of that labor. So you want to try to see as much as you can. Can you do payment in upfront? Can you do 50%? Can we do installments where the first is due at the time the order is placed? Can you do a deposit? You want to do all of this because you are a smaller business and you don't have probably as much access to cash flow. You might not have as much access to credit to keep you up afloat until that money comes in. So this is really, really important. I know a lot of people don't think about this when they're thinking about, negotiating. They might think that it might get them out of the conversation, but it's all about communication. Lack of clear communication is the top reason for disputes between vendors and corporations. Like it says here on the screen, good communication is the bridge between confusion and clarity. And if you don't want confusion and clarity, you need to really amp this up. Communicate, communicate, communicate. So how do we communicate effectively? Well, you want to initiate the conversation, right? Use data to explain how the payment terms affect your business. And so there is data out there to explain why do minority and diverse businesses have a harder time for accepting longer payment terms, right? It's like I said earlier, diverse businesses usually don't get as much access to funding as our white and traditional counterparts. If you're a small business, you typically also don't get access to funding and access to credit as much as your bigger and larger counterparts. So you want to highlight this. You want to frame the discussion in terms of shared goals. You want to say like, hey, if we don't have this, like if you don't pay this much more, then I won't be able to give you the quality of service that you say you want. And you really want this kind of quality of service. And I'd hate for you to not have that, considering that's what's really going to be the most effective in getting to your goals. And so be clear with them about what that means. And also offer solutions. Like I said, milestone-based payments. You're going to hear me say that a lot. You're going to hear me talk about having a discount for early payments. And so if someone wants to pay earlier, they're going to get a discount. And that's really going to resonate with someone who really has a set budget. You want to schedule regular check-ins to ensure financial expectations are met. And so I have a client, I'm going to reference them later in the case studies, where I submit my invoice even before the deadline for the invoice. Having something be a deadline does not necessarily mean that that's when you're actually going to have to do it, right? Thank you for the drop on where folks can get access to more capital, because it's a huge problem. And so when you have a deadline, that doesn't mean the earliest that you can submit an invoice or submit anything in terms of getting paid. You can submit it as early as you want. That is just the last day for you to submit it, or the preferred last day. So I will submit this earlier and I'll say, I just want to check in with your payment terms. How is your accounts payable doing? Is there anything that I should know about? Are there any platform changes that I should know about? This is a dialogue and a communication, and address issues early before they become bigger problems. So an example would be, I sent an invoice to a client recently, probably about 2 weeks ago. And then I followed up a week later and I said, hey, by the way, I hadn't seen this. I haven't seen the deposit in the account. Is there any reason why? You know, and they do have 30 days to typically get it in. However, I like to communicate because they were also the client who would typically get it in 3 days. And so I just wanted to know if something's up. And they reached out and said, honestly, it has been taking 2, sometimes 3 weeks lately to get our vendors paid. So that's something that I would have loved to know exactly when I found out, not a month from now, thinking like, where's the money? Because now we can plan for that in our cash flow. So a winning strategy is to actually be aligned financially. Challenges in the goal of alignment. Corporations often focus on their needs from 6 months to 4 years. So a lot of us think about, wow, I need some money. Let me find some clients so that I can wrap up the year strong. Let's close 2024 on a strong note. You might be thinking this, right? But guess what? A lot of corporations already have closed their books for this year, right? There's nothing else unless they have money that's about to be completely gone, right? And sometimes corporations don't even have an annual calendar year. Sometimes they might have a mid-year calendar year, depending on what their fiscal year looks like. So you want to get clear on what that is. Right now, I am having conversations for fiscal year 2026. And I'm pretty sure, and I won't be surprised if I start having conversations for 2027. And so to let you know, it can be a long cycle. And so you want to get clear on what that is. You want to keep a copy of your RFP, which is the request for proposal, RFQs, the proposals that you submit. You want to keep a copy of that, and don't be afraid to push back when something is out of scope. So oftentimes I'll have clients where when they made the initial request for proposal, they had no idea what their future needs would be. And it wasn't until we were inside of the project. An example would be, it's not until someone who's doing the holiday gift basket realized that inflation is so high and materials are so much higher, and a specific material that the corporation requested or wants to now update is requested and it's going to cost more. Well, that's out of the scope of the original project. And so you want to make sure that your project scope aligns with the work that you're being asked to produce. Because if it's more, well, then that's another conversation and another opportunity for you to be paid. A lot of, and especially what I find among diverse vendors, we'll tend to be more flexible on those things, and you don't have to be. It's business. If you're providing more, it's okay to say, hey, this is out of the scope, and I'd love to do that, and I can submit you a work order for that.
I just wanted to chime in and thank you. Ange, I'm in class. I'm over here taking notes. So I just wanted to say that we kind of spoke about this at our networking and leveraging your conference experience webinar, where you don't want to oversell yourself. You want to be transparent about what what you're able to produce. So if you're looking to kind of negotiate and you're trying to win a bid and you say, wait, let me give them the lowest price. Let me let them know I'll turn it around in 20 days, where it's usually 40 days, and you come up with all these unrealistic expectations, and now you're setting yourself up for failure. So we definitely want you guys to have an understanding that being transparent with the partners, negotiate and letting them know, what you're able to do and being truthful about that is definitely the way you want to go with getting into these type of long lasting professional relationships. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And I just wanted to drop two plugs real quick. Um, when we were talking about access to funding in the payment cycles and the payment terms, we actually have with AMSDC the Business Consortium Fund. And any of you guys never heard about this, we do our financial, our security bag quarterly sessions to talk about some of the financial resources we have with the SBA, PIDCs, and some of our local funding resources. Please let me know if you're ever in a situation where you're in a contract and you're with one of our NMSDC corporates and you need funding to get through that contract. Those payment terms are not paying you for 9 months, like Ange said. I was over here like, oh my goodness. Or, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you need to pay your staff, you need equipment, you need supplies to get through that. Please make sure that you take advantage of the BCF fund. And also Meg put the link here. And also in regards to when you were talking about the forecasting part, the economic outlook with the Federal Reserve Bank is something that we're trying to present at the beginning of each year. So this is a good time. This is last quarter for you guys to do some recon research, figure out how you're going to attack and obtain some of your goals coming up in first quarter. So economic outlook that lets you know where your market is and with some of the expectations of the partners there will give you also some great data. So I just wanted to drop that in there before I forgot.
I love it. Give all the plugs. This is your show, you know that, right? So plug away, my friend. And I love those resources. And a lot of companies, they don't make it through the hard times because they don't reach out and utilize the resources. A lot of folks think that they won't get it. They shoot themselves in the foot ahead of time thinking, I'm not going to qualify. They're going to require too much paperwork. It's not going to be worth it. It's worth it because there's no point in having projected revenue that you cannot fulfill and actually claim and get into your accounts. So just make it happen. The other thing I wanted to say is negotiate. Budgets are almost always flexible. And so I make it a rule to always negotiate. And a lot of times, and I learned this a couple of times in my career, but one, I started off as a recruiter, geez, I don't know, like 15 years ago. And I remember that when we would give offers or when we would hire clients or hire vendors or even hire employees, we never came in at the top of the budget line to accommodate for the person that always wanted more. And I will be very transparent and honest. It was our non-diverse counterparts that mainly went for the jugular of like asking for more and even over the line. And oftentimes I got the green light to just give it to them because by the time we made the decision that we really wanted to work with them, it was too late to backstab. Like we were already in it. And so I say this to say to you, not that you're being greedy, but almost always the work that you're going to do that you're hired for is going to require more than you originally thought, like 90% of the time. And so it's in those moments that you look back and say like, wow, I'm actually happy that I negotiated more, that you're going to feel that you're being adequately paid. And sometimes people can say, no, this is the top of our budget. And that's okay too. And you just do the work and you do it in excellence. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't ask. And it's also okay to start on smaller projects. So I know for a lot of us, we have minimums for what is worth it to do a project, but I will let you know that even doing a project for like a couple $1,000s can lead to a 6-figure and 7-figure contract, right? Sometimes it's about getting your foot in the door and starting that relationship. That doesn't mean that you have to automatically go for the 7-figure contract, especially if you cannot do the work to fulfill that. You might actually want to go for the smaller contract, build that rapport, take that money, reinvest it in your business so that you could eventually go for the multiple 7-figure contracts. And so just get your foot in where you can. And then also, again, be transparent, like what was just said, be transparent about your financial expectations and limitations. Work with corporations to set mutually beneficial payment schedules. So they might say like, no, we typically don't do this. A lot of things are flexible. Say, I know you don't typically do this, but I also know it's a key initiative to reach out to diverse vendors. And this would really make it so much easier for me if it's possible at all. I would love it if you can advocate in this way. it doesn't hurt to ask. And then also discuss opportunities for performance-based bonuses or incentives. And so a lot of times when I'm talking to someone, I'll say like, hey, if this goes really, really well and you love it, would you mind introducing me to someone else? Or I'll say, hey, I am in the process of writing a book. Do you think if this goes really, really well, do you think you might be interested in doing a bulk order book buy? Like whatever you have forward coming up or thinking about, just say like, hey, if this goes really, really well, would you mind doing this? And a lot of people say like, honestly, if it goes really well, then yeah, I wouldn't mind because a lot of people really want to help someone else if they can. And that's just one of my core beliefs. And you should also be willing to do the same as well. So case studies. Any questions so far before we hop into case studies and then Q&A? Let me just check the chat. Take a sip of tea. All right, let's hop into it. So a lot of us, and we're talking more about cash flow and how to talk to businesses in our training, but I do have a lot of other resources. Like if you end up reaching out or getting on our list, I do have a resource where I help people with finding resources to get more corporate contracts because this is something that I'm so thankful that I'm able to activate this arm of my business because of the reasons that we all mentioned before, being able to impact more people, being able to have more cash in our business, having able to have product diversification and revenue diversification in our company. But I am going to touch on some things, but if you're like, wow, this is amazing, I want to know more, please feel free to stay in touch. And so an example here is Target. Target has a specific initiative where they are buying Black. And for a lot of people, they don't understand that when you are a diverse business, they don't understand that there are a lot of companies, especially from the 2020, 2021, who have pledged billions of dollars to supporting and hiring and working with diverse vendors. And a lot of that money is still yet to be paid out. Right. And so they're thinking like, we have it here and it's allocated, but it really is up to us as diverse vendors to go out there and get it. And so what I want you to know is that every major corporation, not every, but most have an initiative to reach out to diverse vendors. And you can put the corporation's name, like Target, diverse vendors or supplier diversity is also a really great term to Google with the corporation's name. And you will see dedicated pages to that. And you can reach out to them. Oftentimes, they might have an accelerator. They might have a special database that you can register for. Another company like this is Google. Google has their own private database for supplier diversity, and it is important to them. So they have an ecosystem where they want to hire diverse Googlers, meaning they want to hire diverse people in their company. They want to foster a fair and inclusive Google, right? So they want it to be where people can be reflected. It can be have diverse thought, diverse product, diverse, ideations. And in order to get that, they need to have a diverse staff. And on top of that, they also want to increase opportunities where they can have other people who are diverse have more success as well. So it's an internal goal and an external goal. And it's also important that when these companies are hiring for internal things, that their employees see that the company walks the talk, that you're not just about hiring diversity, but you're about sharing diversity outside. I can't tell you how many times I will come in, speak at a corporation or work with a corporate partner as a vendor, and their employees will say, I'm so happy to see you here. Like usually it's not a person that looks like me. Usually it's not a person of my gender. Usually it's not a person who understands the way that I see the world. And so your presence in working with these corporations really does matter. And it's something that they want to foster as well. So an example would be, this was me at a Google event earlier this year, and this was an artist that they had commissioned to come in and work for them at the event to do a live mural. And I got to talking to him and I said, that's pretty amazing that you're here. How did you get this opportunity? And he simply said, actually, this is like my third opportunity with Google. Like I am their resident artist. And I thought to myself, isn't that crazy that you can be on retainer as an artist? Right? Usually you have people who are coaches, consultants, cleaning services. You've got folks who do catering. You've got folks who do really anything. But I thought it was really cool that even artists could be on retainer for a corporation. And it was really important to them that they did hire a diverse person to do this. As you can see, it was a diversity event. And so it was very appropriate to have him there. And the last case study that I'm going to highlight is actually one of my clients, LISC. And so LISC is a local initiative, social something. My brain is like missing what the acronym stands for because they almost never say it. But LISC is an organization that dispatches billions of dollars of funds. And when I started working with LISC, it was just on a very small side. It was just doing an employee resource group, a ERG talk. And now I've been working with them for over a year and a half, and we have had a lot of beautiful business together and creating impact together. And so far, right now, I am on my 4th contract with LISC. And that's to tell you the power of just providing good, solid work, staying in communication. And now it's at the point where people at LISC will refer me to the contracts for the bigger organization as a whole. And so what I want you to say is when you're thinking about these corporate contracts, know that just because you have a contract with one part of the organization, it doesn't mean that you can't have opportunity with other parts of the organization, right? I have been known to hop around many times around an organization to serve different departments for different things and different needs. So if you are someone who, example, have a cleaning contract with a corporation, you can have a cleaning corporate contract with them, but you can also have a contract with their women's ERG network if you are a woman founder of that corporation. As an example, you can be a subject matter expert on how do you balance life and a rigorous career, right? Don't box yourself in just because you think you do one thing. Every part of you could be an asset to a viable partner. And so with that said, there are your real world case studies. And the key takeaways that I want you to know is that it's important for you to understand your cash flow and your corporate cash flow and come to an understanding of how you can merge them both. Do not be afraid to advocate for what you desire and for the lasting of your company, whether that means advocating for your payment terms or being open to taking more outside funding so that you can fulfill on what you have to deliver. Also, I want you to be clear and proactive with communication. So many corporations and corporate partners talk about the lack of communication when they work with smaller businesses or when they work with diverse funders. Be the standard that they can look at and actually use to employ other people, right? And so I try to make myself the standard so that when someone else in the room comes that looks like me or that talks like me or that has a similar goal and background, they have a good positive experience to reinforce to say like, hey, yes, we've worked with someone like that before. This is going to be amazing. So know that, I know it's a little bit of an extra pressure, but know that that's you lighting the way for other people behind you. So really come to the forefront with your goals and expectations, advocate for them, and execute on excellence. And then make this an actual standard operating procedure in the way that you're doing this. Structure your terms, structure late fees. A lot of vendors don't have late fees. They're like, when they pay me, they pay me. Yeah, no. If you pay your bills late, you get charged a fee. Be transparent with that so people know that you're not one to be messed with. And just because you're small, don't forget that you're also mighty. So with that said, I want to definitely highlight to you that we have a resource. Feel free to grab it. For everyone who does add today, you can just go bit.ly/I met Ange, and there's a free research. It's usually, I think right now it's how do you build the most of your net worth. But for everyone that does get that, we're also going to put a little something as a checklist for you on what's a better way to communicate with corporations to get more and better contracts. So everyone who does log on to this or add to our list, we'll flag you to get that resource because I know that there's a lot of confusion and this is just us giving it to you complimentary because there's a lot that you can do that you probably don't know about. So I want you to be wealthy in your regular life and wealthy in your corporate life. And so with that said, I'd love to open it up for Q&A. Are there any questions?
Wow. Thank you, Ange, so much. I'm over here snapping my fingers. You guys better get those happy goodies. We love a takeaway. So I'm super excited about those case studies that I had no idea that Ange is adding on. You guys got a little bit of relatable type of emphasis, like letting you know exactly what a happy customer does is retention. It leads into more business. Leading with excellence. You guys are competing with a wide range of diverse vendors. So you can't lead with that. You have to lead with the quality of work and leading with that excellence and leaving them a long-lasting impression. So I really appreciate you adding that. It's very important. Aligning with the social impact goals of that corporation and that partner while you're researching them, and just seeing what other type of initiatives that you could align your services with. I really appreciate you adding all of those gems to this conversation, because it means a lot. So you guys happen to register, you will be receiving all of this stuff in the recap. There's some amazing resources here. Those organizations that Ange mentioned are ones that should be taking away with you guys. Some of them may have some resources that align with your needs and goals as well. So I'm going to go see if there's any questions here. Um,
And I'll also be, while you check for questions, I will also be there next week at the conference. So if you happen to see me, please say hi. And I will also let you know I'm short. So a lot of people see me and they're like, I thought you would be taller. I carry myself tall, but I am
yes,
actually
you
short. So do
do.
not be surprised if you see me strutting around 5'3" with my head held high.
We
But do
love
say
it.
hello and say that, let me know that you came to the session this week.
Yes, I met Ange. I'm going to be scanning the QR code. And so we love that. We appreciate you in this content, and we're really excited about introducing you to the network. And you guys have any questions, this is your time. It was a very in-depth presentation. So sometimes I don't take it to offense, like, y'all don't have any questions, okay. But at least you guys know where to find this information. Follow Ange on social media. Making sure that you take advantage of the recap and the takeaways that were said. So with that being said, if anybody doesn't have any questions, I'm just going to let you guys know that this again is one of the last Road to Roar. We'll be doing a little bit more content. If you're into looking to get into exporting or importing any products or services internationally, we'll be working with the World Trade Center to put together some assessments to get you guys ready for some of the information that they're going to be sharing. So if you haven't taken advantage of looking at the agenda for ROAR, we have some amazing information that has been confirmed daily. So things have changed during the week. So make sure that you take a look at that. We also have our golf event. We're super excited. The main importance of our golf event is our youth entrepreneur fundraiser. We support local organizations that have a focus on supporting our youth in the community. So if you have a youth organization that you're currently supporting and you would like for them to be next year's recipient, please share that with us. We're looking to get more intentional about the entrepreneur programs that we support. So I'm gonna let you guys go. If you don't have any questions for Ange, I want to thank you again. Um, Following up with Meg with the recap she'll be sending out. And again, I'm Aaliyah, Director of MBE Services, and I'm here. If you haven't visited a post-certification webinar or you haven't connected with me one-on-one so that we could just talk a little bit more about your goals here at the council, I'm available. I'm gonna make sure I put my email. I think everybody on the call has that, abunch@emscc.org. But thank you again, Ange. Thank you for joining us, and we're going to let you guys go. Enjoy the rest of your productive week, and we hope to see you next week at Roar.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.